Yeah. Thank you. Now I request Dr. Rohit Cocurricular to take over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Siva. Thank you, Bindu ma'am, for the introduction.
We also have some of our office bearers. We have Dr. Bindu Thomas is Vice Chair of IEEE Education Society. Dr. Bharti Hiramat is Secretary of IEEE Education Society. We also have Dr. Prashant, who is the STEM lead for IEEE Education Society. And these are the office bearers who are here, and others are all from different institutes. Yes, sir. Take over, please.
Thank you everyone for being here, and I'm so excited to facilitate this faculty development program on implementing service learning engineering education. I believe after 2 years of dealing with pandemics and moving to online education, I felt this is the right time for us to start re-engaging on how we can be more outward through educational processes, through a lot of more community engagement, which would happen in person. I think, Bindu ma'am, thank you for the introduction. So I think I can just skip the slide. Uh, I think just to start off with, this is going to be a 4-week program. So it's very important for each of us to just at least briefly get to know each other. For me, this is not just a faculty development program, but it's a start of a community of interested academicians in service learning who would really like to get into it and try to really engage in service learning at the respective institutions. So maybe quickly, everyone, if you wouldn't mind, if you can quickly unmute yourself and just introduce yourself briefly, name, educational qualifications, affiliations, why you're interested in this program particularly, and what are the expected outcomes. I think the last question will just help me also as a facilitator to better manage my presentations and my resources. So we'll quickly spend around 10 minutes doing this, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, I request all of you to introduce yourself. Prashant here to start with. Dr. Prashant. Okay, Dr. Bharti Hiramat, please introduce yourself.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Sir, I am Dr. Bharti. Yeah. I've done my PhD in video processing, signal processing, video processing. I'm a professor in Reva University, Bangalore. The title of the FTP program itself is a new concept to me. That is why I'm interested in this program. All the all the terms, whatever you have defined in a title of this program, is very new to us. Not only for me. I hope all of you will agree with this statement. It is very new to us. And what is an expected outcome here is I would like to contribute some area like designing of such programs that would help our student community in the Reva University or any other university affiliated colleges also. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bharti. Really great to have you in the program.
Yes.
Hello, sir. This is Muhammad Riyaz Ahmed. Am I audible?
Little, but you can be a little more louder if possible.
Yes. My name is Muhammad Riyaz Ahmed. I am a PhD and I am affiliated to Reva University. Why interested in this program? Because I want to learn new kind of pedagogy, classroom delivery, and also I want to integrate community outreach and course delivery for one particular program, especially focusing on SDGs. So this may help me, and that is what I'm looking for in this program.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Others can follow.
Good evening, sir. This is Dr. Manjunath Kaunte. I'm working as associate professor in Reva University. My qualification is a PhD, and the basic purpose of this, like joining for this FDP, is the service learning in engineering education is really relatively very new term for me. So I want to explore what kind of learning opportunity is this. So that is the reason I have enrolled for this FTP. And regarding the outcome, like maybe I'm hoping that I will be able to come up with a new pedagogical skills for improving the teaching learning process at our university. So that is the reason I have enrolled for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manjunath.
Please introduce yourself quickly.
Hello, this is Prashant, PhD qualification. I am with Dr. Ambedkar Institute of Technology, Bangalore, as a controller of examinations. I am interested in this program because of the very new phrase, service learning in engineering education. Because nowadays we are facing a lot of problems with students and their performance and their readiness to the industry. So therefore, I thought it will be useful for me. And the outcomes that I expect from this program are how to improve the student performance, particularly with respect to NEP and the present day quality of the incoming students. Thank you.
Definitely, Dr. Prashant. I think those are topics we'll definitely cover, and I'm very sure that's the right program you picked. So I hope it definitely is very helpful to you.
Thank you, sir.
Others?
Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Abdul Haq from Rewa University. I am working as assistant professor in School of Multidisciplinary Studies. Even to me, this program seems to be new. Why I enrolled this program is I want to know how to actually use engineering knowledge to serve the society in real time. So those things probably I would like to learn from this program. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you.
Dr. Ashwini Hoda. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the delay. Yes, I've been teaching for some 15 odd years now. And whenever I coordinate projects, like I see that most of the students and we ourselves as teachers fail to put to use whatever we have done for the use of community or public at large. So I wish to learn more and well, hoping that this is going to be a very fruitful session. Best wishes for organizing this particular workshop at this juncture in the first place. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Prasanjay Dev Madhusudan, I think. Kavita.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Madhusudan from Nadgir Institute. Basically, I deal with community projects of Nadgir group of institutions. Okay. We deal with entrepreneurship programs and skill development programs around India. Basically, looking for an engineering outlook for the community programs.
Thank you.
Okay, I think
If that's all, then I'll go ahead.
yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you all for your introductions. Seems a quite diverse group of people. A good number of people from Rewa University. I think that'll be a great benefit just for the university that after the program you'll all be able to collaborate with each other. So let's going ahead. This would be the structure of the program. We will have a 4-week program. In the first week, this week, we'll look into introduction to service learning. Next week, how do we initiate and foster community partnerships? Week 3 will focus on employing approach to solve community problems. And the last 4 is how do we really assess students learning through these service learning projects. The learning outcomes of the program, at the end of the 4-week program, participants will be able to engage and forge partnerships with communities that are built around mutual respect, trust, and reciprocal relationships. Design a new service learning course or integrate service learning into existing engineering course. And the last one is guide students to use human-centered design as an approach to solve community problems identified in partner communities. Now, getting started, this week we'll focus more on introduction to service learning. What really is service learning? The session objectives or the session outcomes. At the end of the session, I hope you'll be able to recall the various benefits of why service learning should be implemented in an engineering program and what are the various ways or models of integrating service learning. This would be the agenda for the definition of service learning. What are the essential components? Why is service learning important? The benefits, various models of integration into curriculum, and what are the contexts of service learning? The overall goal today, again, is to just give you an introduction and set the context on why this is an important pedagogy and how can we actually make sense of this pedagogy in our respective engineering curriculum. Service learning is defined as a credit-bearing educational experience in which students participate in an organized service activity that meet individual identified community needs and reflect on service activity in such a way as to gain further understanding of the course content, a broad appreciation of the discipline, and an enhanced sense of civic responsibility. I know this is a big definition, but let's break this down. If you look at the first part of this definition, service learning first is a credit bearing educational experience. So a lot of times we're expected that when students are into service learning projects or courses, they have credits given to it. And second, as part of this service learning experience, there has to be an organized service activity where we identify community needs and students reflect on that service activity so that they can gain further understanding of their discipline, appreciation of their discipline, and also enhance sense of civic responsibility. So this is one of the most standard definitions of service learning. Let's get more into it right now. Intentionally, I'm sorry I had a power cut, but I made sure I put myself on a hotspot. So I'll be a little dark, but I'll switch off my video. Okay. So intentional integration of service experiences into academic courses in order to enhance the learning of core content and to give students broader learning opportunities about themselves and society at large. Service learning basically gives an opportunity for learning. While we are learning, we also address the needs of underprivileged in our society. So it becomes a give and take where we're also learning in the process and also someone is getting benefited in the society. Service learning does not just necessarily mean volunteer activities, but it also can be integrated learning experiences, and that is what we're going to try and do right now. There are four essential components to service learning: service, academic connection, that is the connection of that service activity to our curriculum, reciprocal partnerships, that is we are working with someone and trying to provide them service, and the last one being reflection. Well, now individually, let's briefly talk about each one of them. The first component, service, is as the name suggests itself, right? Service. So a central component service learning is that we are trying to serve the needs of undeserved communities through projects which will lead to the larger development and socio-economic development. In particularly engineering, service can take many forms, from direct contact with people through educational programs or the elderly to projects that are delivered to the underserved populations. For example, a solar power system for a rural village. So there can be many forms of service, but the goal here is that while we are doing something or while students or faculty are doing something, some community or some organization benefits in that process. So we are servicing in that way. It's also leading to a benefit to them. The second one is academic connection, a very essential component of service learning. The service students perform must provide reinforcement of and connection with subject material of an academic course. Now, for example, there can be various forms of service learning projects that we can take up. I can just talk about developing a software for a NGO, working on some particular aspects of it. I can have various different projects, but as faculty, what we have to do is the application of knowledge and to solve these technological problems to solutions have to happen through knowledge that students are gaining through their discipline. So the technological solution should be aligned to the theoretical knowledge that they are building in classroom. So that academic connection is important, and that's something we have to facilitate as faculty. Service learning just provides a context for students to apply learning from academic material to solve real-time problems. A lot of times, at least in my time, even as an undergraduate student, a lot of projects got involved only at the final year when we have our major projects. And even those major projects, I was allowed to choose my own problem statement on which problem I want to solve. And a lot of times, the problems are not very real time and not and this is where service learning really makes it real, is the problems that you're trying to solve are real time problems, which also builds in a lot of motivational factor for students to work on them. Each service learning design project should have appropriate engineering content to address the academic goals of the program. So this is where the academic connection to the service learning project or a program that we are building is very important. Now, let's just take an example of academic connection. This is an example of how a service learning component was integrated into mechanical engineering course on internal combustion engines. Students performed the service of installing and monitoring emissions control devices in local vehicles. It gave students a real hands-on applications to the theory being presented in the class and gave affordable access to emissions reducing technology to the community. So a lot of times when I need to get my emissions and all checked up, I go to a store and I have to pay some money for it. But this is where they found a reciprocal partnership where they found a project where students were doing the checking free of cost because they're learning in the process, and the community also was benefiting because they're getting these services free of cost. So this is one example of how certain topics from a particular course are being academically connected to the service learning project. The third component is reciprocal partnerships. For me personally, this is the most important component because service learning involves partnerships characterized by reciprocity between a community and a university. A university is trying to engage with the community. The reciprocal partnership, the term reciprocal is very important because it means that we're both contributing to the partnerships. A lot of times we have this very colonial bias in us that we are going and solving the community's problem. So we think we're higher than them, we think we're better than them, so we're just going and solving someone's problem. But it's very, very important for us to reinforce this among our students that those we're performing service learning is not, we're not doing something for someone, we're doing something with someone. So we are solving this problem with the community. And the with is very important is because while we're also solving their problem, we are getting an opportunity to learn from that. So that is where it becomes a reciprocal relationship and we're both benefiting the process. So each member of the partnership contributes to the goals and each member benefits from it. And students and community members work together as partners in addressing the community need. So normally, in terms of literature, not all service learning projects are reciprocal because a lot of time they become project based, where I'm picking a problem from the community, building a project, and just leaving it in the community, not caring if they're actually making use of the product. Has there been any impact of that solution? Has there been any social and economic development of that? So reciprocal relationships are key in order for you to really also meet the first component of service learning, which is service. The last part, very important to students' learning and development, is reflection. Reflection is a vital component in service learning and also in education as well. Students and service learning experiences are intentionally guided. That is, through their experiences, they're asked maybe through assignments, through to reflect on various aspects such as the work being performed, what processes are they using to accomplish the task, what is the implication of the work, and what is the learning that is taking place. Activities promoting reflection can take many forms, such as just giving them open-ended questions saying, what was the most important moment about your service learning experience this week? That can be written and oral. You can ask them some questions that they can write down, and also maybe summaries of work that's been taken. So there are various forms where reflections can be collected. But reflection is key because it's not only about doing something for the community and but it's also about reflecting from a student standpoint on why are we doing this? What does this mean to us? Does this mean that engineering has a role for the betterment of society? Does it mean that engineers as have some moral responsibility towards the community? So there are a lot of aspects of reflection that is important here for students to really understand their civic responsibility. Now, next, looking to the benefits of service learning, students benefit in different ways from different aspects. The project aspect of service learning, where they work on projects, it gives students real world experience and a concrete starting and ending point. So they have to start a project from scoping it to ending a project where they're testing the solution. So this is entirely giving them it's like a simulation of a real world project implementation. So before going even the industry where this is how projects are, where a project starts, a project ends, you have deliverables, you have to meet that. They're able to learn all of these project management skills right in college through a service learning project. Service learning introduces the concept of engineering as a tool to help society. I personally did not know what engineering meant to me after I finished graduation. But now that I reflect back, with respect to the climate change and all the factors that are going on, I really believe engineers have to have a big role in the betterment of society to help society. And also the concept of engineering just in terms of understanding the customer needs. So if they're working on a service learning project, they have a client, they have a consumer, so they have to go and talk to them about what is the problem, what is the need of the problem, what are the constraints and criteria. So all of those understanding of how you have to talk to the user and go through the project management cycle is something service learning can really teach you. And these, of course, will have ripple effects in your future lives and careers because, as you all know, when you get into industry and you get into managerial roles, most of the managerial roles are project management roles. So if students already learn how to start doing project management early on, they start getting leadership opportunities much earlier as compared to the peers, and it will lead to better trajectory in industry in terms of their professional growth. Service learning also helps to develop high order critical thinking skills, self management skills, because now you're also responsible for yourself and towards your team. And I feel these are important for a young student. One of the key elements of employment engineering is the interaction with and accountability to client. That is, how do I talk to a client? What questions do I ask? And what are the deliverables with my client? How do I make sure I meet my deliverables? So a lot of this can be simulated in a university setting through a community-based or a service learning experience, and designing a solution to satisfy the needs of a client and reporting information clearly and updating the progress and dealing with the changes that the client is giving you. All of these are integral parts of a project cycle, and this whole project management cycle, not only project management, but how to scope a problem, how to talk to the clients, how to keep them involved, how to do the testing, how to change the design based on the user feedback. All of these are things that you will learn early on. And when you go back to industry, it's just about you working in a different context and different setting. But the design process, the project management process is still the same. And these are some things you learn really early on. Reflection, which we discussed that is an essential component of service learning, can really help students understand how academic material covered in the course can be implemented to solve real world problems, how the course material relates to service, what are the implications of social context and issues associated with that mean. For example, if I go talk about some particular problem, it's also important to understand why has that problem occurred. Recently, for example, my institution, we've been working with a few government schools, and one of the government schools, not one of them, most of them, it's a very shocking fact, but in one primary school which has 6 grades, there will be only one teacher to teach 6 grade of students every day in one day. There's not division of classes, and one teacher expects to do so much. So in issues like these, having students reflect, it will also make them reflect on not only about the problem but also the various sociological context on why is this problem occurring. Is it a budget constraint? Is it a human resource constraint? Is it a policy constraint? What exactly is happening? Why can't we have more teachers in the school? So this is where role of engineering in the context of large social issues will really be something students think about. And there is a growing awareness among the global engineering community that engineering needs a more reflective thought process and reflective process in their undergraduate curriculum, uh, because we need engineers who are more empathetic and who want to care and support the society. And this is where reflection through service learning can really prepare them for doing that. Research has clearly identified that guided reflections help students understand their discipline better, and more importantly, they develop an enhanced sense of civic responsibility and benefit in the community. And the development of civic outcomes among students is greatly emphasized in the India's national education policy, which envisions an education system that would instill ethics, human and constitutional values among our students. So, for a person to be ethical, humane, and constitutional, it's just not possible that it will happen magically. There needs to be an educational process that makes them reflect and understand the root causes or the root fundamentals of their constitution and how what is their role as a citizen in this country. So, which is where service learning has huge benefits and is considered as a key pedagogy in the context of the national education policy moving forward. So I see more and more institutions, and definitely all the participants represent different institutions, that we all start service learning programs that will really benefit our students and make them into moral citizens of the country. Now, what is the various forms of service learning integration? There are four forms. First is integration of service learning into existing courses, or integration of service learning into co-curricular components, or just designing new service learning courses on its own, or developing service learning programs. So I'll just give you a few examples about this to give you some reference and context. Let's take example of service learning into existing courses. This is where service learning is included as a small component of courses, where, for example, let's take University of Massachusetts Lowell in the mechanical engineering department, where there's the solar systems engineering class. Students are expected to analyze the effects of design alternatives on homes built by Habitat for Humanity and propose their own design alternatives to improve energy efficiency. So if you see here, the course is teaching about energy efficiency, and they're asking students to provide their own designs to improve energy efficiency at homes built by a certain NGO, so that the NGO gets free consultancy by technical experts, and also students learn in the process. So a small service learning activity included in an existing course. Similarly, at University of Utah, the hydrology class in civil engineering, students conduct a hydrological analysis on a local lake. So every year they check the levels of that lake to just check how it's in terms of chemicals and humidity and other aspects of it, to just make sure it's clean uh, and it's something to be done for the community. These are just a couple of examples how in an existing course itself we can include small aspects of service learning where you want to give real-time context to the topics you're teaching. Another example is integration to co-curricular components. Some of you might have heard about the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan program, which is a national service learning initiative launched by India's Ministry of Education, with the vision to promote community engagement among higher educations, intended to contribute to socio-economic development. So, as part of this program, every higher education institution should partner with 5 villages to identify the weakest linkages that could be addressed to technological innovations. The program aims to engage faculty and students with rural communities to understand their realities, culture, and lifestyles. So, this particular program does not have any credits. So, it's at least in my institution offered as a co curricular program where students do this out of passion, out of choice, and out of interest. Another form of integration is integration to new courses. For example, at our institution, KGD College of Engineering, we've designed a course called Innovation Rural Development, where we offer this to all the freshman students, where students spend a few weeks to visit and engage with our partner villages, and in that process, identify the most pressing problems that they can solve through technological innovation. So a new course was entirely designed through service learning as its core pedagogy. Another example is Iowa State. where in the EC department, a senior design course was created to partner with local organizations that work with children with disabilities. So seniors participate in a 2-semester sequence to design, build, and deploy toys and therapeutic devices for children with disabilities. So this is where they're actively working with an NGO to try and design toys and other kind of solutions for these children. So again, a very multidisciplinary, but a new course which is entirely designed with the fundamental core of service learning. And lastly, service learning integration into a new program. So the Engineering Projects for Community Service, EPICS, is a very globally known program run by Purdue University, which is where this is not just, it's an entire program where there are multiple set of electives. Any student from any discipline can take up this course for 1 semester, 2 semesters, 3 semesters, and they work with NGOs on predefined problems and they try to solve them. A few examples here is homeless prevention, where computer engineers were working with sociology students to design data management systems for local agencies that work with homeless and at-risk population. Similarly, mechanical and electrical engineers working with child development students to design and build therapeutic devices for children with disabilities. So this is an entire program that's built in university, and this is another approach which usually happens after a lot of maturity on of your service learning courses. So these are various models of integration of service learning. Now, where does service learning take place? There can be many ways. One of them could be local communities. Other could be community partners such as NGOs, where you're not directly working with the community, but the NGO acts like your middleman to where they tell you the problem and give you information about the criteria and constraints about the problem. And there's a huge increase, at least until COVID pandemic hit us. And after that, it's, I think, definitely stopped. But then there have been a lot of international projects where, especially with the whole global engineering mindset and approach, a lot of students from around the world working on problems in different countries, where they visit those countries for a short period, understand the problem, and then come back to their respective countries to build solutions. So the various also contexts of where service learning can take place. Uh, so these were things that I mainly wanted to share today. We defined just service learning as an experience where we work with the community to identify a few problems, real-time problems, develop real-time solutions, and deploy it in real-time communities so that there's real-time impact. So that, which is where this service aspect of it. We discussed the various components of service learning, the need to serve a community, the requirement to have an academic connection to curriculum, reciprocal partnerships where both are benefiting the process, and reflections. We've discussed the various benefits of service learning, where how students get real-time project management experience, real-time engineering solution-based experience right before going to the industry, which will be very key. And also builds various other skills like ethics, civic engagement, civic responsibility. We discussed a bit about the models of integration. You can either integrate a service learning project into an existing course, or as a co-curricular activity, or as a new course or a program. So this is just brief introduction about service learning for today. I think for the next 15 minutes, what I would like us to do is us to reflect while we're asking students that this is so students have to reflect in service learning. It's also important for us to reflect, and for the purpose of the next 4 weeks, I really encourage you all to have a small journal, like a book or something, where you keep making notes of what you are understanding about service learning. So 3 things for us to do in the next 15 minutes, depending on what all you've learned, you've maybe not learned but understood today. uh, what are the 3 crucial points from your understanding of service learning? For example, if you go back home, maybe with your family or a friend, how do you explain service learning? What are the 3 essential points for you? Then 2 important benefits which you understood from service learning, which you appreciate the most, and 1 confusing or challenging element of service learning that you want to pay more attention to. Again, there is no right or wrong answer for these because it's a reflection. So these answers that you have will be personal to you and your journey. So I think you can take the next 7-8 minutes for each of us to make these notes in your journal. Trust me, a journal really helps for you to have your final takeaways from the entire faculty development program. So I request you all to maintain a small journal for the next 4 weeks and make notes of these questions for the next 7-8 minutes. And then we'll quickly after that have a few of us just share our reflections. If before that, if you all have any questions from any of the content I've shared until now, this is the right time, I think, to ask your questions. Feel free to raise all your questions and I'll be happy to answer them.
Request audience to unmute and ask if there are any questions.
Awkward silence always means you understood nothing or you understood everything. So I'm sure there's a lot of middle ground here. So I'll appreciate any questions. Feel free to ask them.
Yeah, Dr. Rohit, I had attended one of the EPICS program organized by IEEE in Hyderabad itself. It was way back in 2014. And we had some of the professors from Purdue University itself who were there in that program. I am unable to recollect.
Professor Bill Oakes.
Yes, Oakes. Absolutely right. So he was there, and we had a 2 days workshop, engineering projects in community service. So how to take this particular initiative forward, but well, though we keep doing some of these what do you say initiatives, we don't bring it under this banner in what is that called service learning. So our faculty take up many projects in this direction, but we don't label it as service learning. So I think we have to look into that. Most of
and also, sir, a critical aspect there is I spoke about the essential components of service learning. So when we talk about that, that is what is key here. Any kind of project where students are working on a project is not service learning. It's very important that there's a service aspect, an academic connection, a reciprocal partnership, a two-way partnership that is important, and a reflection based activity which will be key. So I think it's important that we have all of these components as part of our experiences, and after we have that is where we can really call it service learning, which is where I feel there's a lot of aspects of service and academic connection, but a lot of experiences miss reciprocal partnerships and reflection. So, which is why I've introduced them very early on in this FDP, is that when we are developing, and we'll talk about these different components in the next few weeks, but it's important on how we consciously think about integrating them into our experiences and ensuring that students have higher cognitive outcomes as a result of it.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we never thought of those key components of service learning. I mean, as you suggested, service, then academics, partnerships, then analysis and reflection. Yeah, we never thought of these key components. Okay, anybody would like to ask any question here? I think for most of us it is new. I think going further, we may be able to pose some.
Yes, definitely.
I don't have a question. Hello, I don't have a question as such because I think it's, sorry, I've lost my voice. It's too premature at this point. But however, I feel that when there are open-ended interdisciplinary problems, often there's a lot of time wasted on discussions that are very divergent. So probably, like this is way too early that I'm asking the questions. Ideating on this, brainstorming on this is quite difficult when we actually start with a problem. So like, we want to do something in this area. So like, what, how, I mean, thinking about that and actually focusing itself takes a long time. I'm really sorry, I can't, articulate much better. It's like,
No, that's a very interesting point, and it's very valid because that's key here, right? Because which is what I mentioned before. As part of a lot of our universities, students do major projects. Some people work on some good problems. Why isn't that service learning? Which is where because there is an essential element of we working with a particular community to wanting to serve them and improve their socioeconomic development. It takes time for us to really identify those critical problems, and also after we identify critical problems, what are the ones that we can solve. It's not that we can solve any kind of problem. It depends on which discipline you are from. It depends on maybe which disciplines your university might have. It was interesting to see that Rewa University has a multidisciplinary program. So as part of multidisciplinary program, what are the disciplines that we have, and what are the kind of solutions that we potentially can target with these disciplines. So it requires for the institution and the faculty to do a lot of background work on what is the right mix that will include all these components into your experience.
And sir, what are the on-campus resources that are required for this particular service learning? See, most of us, when we are in our campuses, what are the actual resources required, on-campus resources for service learning?
Sir, I don't think there's a hard and fast rule for that, because I think in terms of the resources and logistics, it's again like a basic course, but it includes field experiences. So as part of a service learning, because there's service involved, there's a partnership component involved. You're working with a particular partner, either an organization or a community. So there needs to be resources in place for students to be able to do field visits. And after that happens, depending on what problem you're trying to solve, what solution you're building, it really depends on the materials and the resources you require. So there's no hard and fast rule here in terms of what particular resources that might be required. It really depends on the context, the kind of the problem you're trying to solve, and the kind of solution that you're proposing.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
Sir, this is really interesting. Actually, lot of financial aspects are involved in this, in implementing such projects. How do we can convince our project as this project to our what is that our management, or to motivate our students to involve to take up such projects? Any financial assistance we could get from any other sources other than that university?
Thank you, Bharti ma'am. I think that's a great question. Because I personally, also being in the administrative role, constantly have these questions, right? Because there's so many problems, there's so many solutions that you can build. Who funds these projects? So there's again, no right, correct answer or no straightforward answer. It really depends. There are many NGOs who can get funds. It depends on a community. If you're working with a community, can you raise some funds with the community? Or, for example, I spoke about the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan program. So, as per Unnat Bharat Abhiyan program, if you come up with good proposals, they give projects of funding up to 1 lakh. Or I spoke of the EPICS program. IEEE EPICS have funding for $10,000 per project nationally. There are various forms that are available, but I think critical here is for the university to put their skin in the game, not only through their resources, but also financially. Now, as a institution, why should I put money into the game, or why should I fund this? These are the answers I've told myself, and I've been funding the projects in our institution. Is first, students learn. Students have great outcomes, and if students have great outcomes like project management, lifelong learning, design thinking, communication, teamwork, all of these aspects which they learn from service learning, they will be ready for great jobs in the industry. Not only for good jobs, but product-based jobs which offer higher packages, and they will become leaders in the industry very soon. And they will become successful alumni who will be representing your university. Again, this is very long term. But apart from that, students are working on innovation. So as part of innovations, now the national education policy talk about innovation. Even the ARIA ranking is out there right now where we are promoting innovation entrepreneurship. So innovation is happening in the institution. Apart from that, if you develop a real-time solution, innovative solution, you can patent that product. So you're developing intellectual property in your institution, on your institution's name. So I feel these are all the reasons why there should be a small corpus fund set up at institutions to support community-based projects. And in fact, even ARIA ranking has this parameter. How many of the ideas developed in the institution are on social innovation, and how many of these ideas were funded by the institution? Because for industry projects, there'll be many people to fund. Community projects, not many. So which is where I feel university has to have skin in the game.
Sure, sir.
Sorry
Correct,
for the
sir.
long answer, but I just want to be comprehensive.
Yes, correct, sir. Your answer is right. Rightly you have addressed. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Sir, any good practices that we need initially to go ahead with this service learning? I mean, one or two good practices, if you do this will lead to.
Of course, which is what we'll discuss in the next sessions. Today's introduction, but next 3 weeks are about what are the best practices, what are the actionable things we have to do in order to start service learning, engage in that, and also complete that process.
Okay. Yeah. Any other question from members? I think so it looks like there are any other questions anybody would like to ask? Okay, so it looks like there are no more questions.
No problem. Sir, I would also suggest that we create a WhatsApp group with all the participants so that we don't just stick to asking questions in the session. Anywhere, anytime during the week, if you have any questions, you can keep asking and we can keep discussing about it.
I think we have already created a WhatsApp group, sir. It is done today. Only your name has to be included.
Please do, please do.
Yeah. One of our faculty, Dr. Riaz Ahmed, has done this. So we'll add your, with your permission, we'll add your name in the group.
Sounds good. So I think if a few of the participants can share their experience on these now. Again, we're doing this a virtual session, a virtual faculty development program. It's not my best way. I would love to have in-person sessions, but I think the access to technology also gives us benefits where people from various across just sitting at homes or offices trying to do this FDP. So I really like everyone to be as engaged as possible because that will be my only metric to know if is this a good program or not, and are you really following what I'm trying to convey or not? So these questions are also pointers for me to get a sense of your understanding. So I request you all, at least around 4 to 5 participants, if you can just quickly talk about these questions, 2 to 3 crucial aspects from your understanding of service learning. What did you understand, and what are the most crucial aspects according to you? A couple of benefits that you appreciated the most, and one confusing or challenging element. If not all the questions, anyone could even answer one of the questions. But I'd like to know from you all now. So we'll leave the rest of the time for that.
Sir, first question, how do we explain service learning to your friend? Sir?
Yes.
I'll tell like this, it is a approach where you can integrate your knowledge to a community service, one thing. Second one, you will have a, what do you call, you can serve the society to solve the real-time problems through our technology. Then 2 important benefits. If a student is engaged in community service learning, he will able to develop an ability of serving the society, one thing, financial management, project management, lifelong learning. So he'll have a lot of benefits before he could, could be employed. He will have a successful entrepreneur in designing the projects and solving the real-time problems. The one confusing and challenging is again, I'd already explained, expressed
Yes.
financial aspects.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Great points. Thank you for sharing them.
Hi, Rohit. This is Manjunath
Good evening,
here.
Yes, Dr. Manjunath.
Yes, sir.
Sir, this
Like,
is Lingam.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Sir, according to me, the most challenging element is to gain the trust of the community, sir, actually. So people like us will interact with the community, will go to the community and they will collect all the problems. But why the people, community people should trust us? So getting trust by them is the most challenging part, sir, according to me. And
Thank you, Lingam sir. A very good point. Because when you actually go to the field, this is a common thing, right? You are going there to learn. But why should they trust you and share their problems for you to be able to think about solving them? So the trust is a very important aspect there. And I think which is why the next week's session will be very well relevant, which is building reciprocal partnerships. So we'll talk about that in more detail and how we particularly address the challenge. Thank you, Lingam sir.
sure, sir. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Manjunath, you were saying.
Yes, sir. Yeah, like one basic understanding what I had with this session is because of service learning, students after attending the classroom sessions, they can go outside and take up some kind of activities, some kind of service related activities or community related activities outside the university or outside the classroom. That is the basic understanding what I understood in this session. And one of the benefit what I thought was it will help and it will give a satisfaction to students that okay, we are somehow contributing something to the society. That satisfaction level will increase to students. That is what I understood with respect to benefit. And obviously the main challenge what I felt was like how and where do I start? I mean, I'm talking about respect to student point of view. Like as soon as we talk about service learning to students, the first thing they'll come to their mind is, I mean, where I should start and how I should start. That is the challenge what I feel.
Thank you, Dr. Manjunath. Great points. A relevant question, where do I start? I think next week is where we start. The first step is always initiating communication with a community or an NGO or an organization to whom we want to service. So the first step is identifying who we want to service. So that is what we'll focus on the next session.
Yeah, Dr. Rohit, this is Bindu Thomas. Thank you very much for this very informative session. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay. So it was very useful. So far, we were able to understand the importance of service learning. From my point of view, service learning can be explained to students as such that you can contribute to the community at large by your technical expertise that you get at your schools, like in your engineering program. So this is how I can explain to my student or friend about what is service learning. And the benefit is the satisfaction of transferring your knowledge to a betterment of the community. So that itself is the most appreciable idea about service learning. And the confusing and the challenging aspect, as everybody indicated, is how do we go by? Look, when I talk to my students about projects of such kind, the first thing they do is they go on Amazon and check for a product of that kind and then say, ma'am, it's available. So they look at it like that. So if it is available, then why are we working on that area? But when we look at it in depth, it is not in market as the way that we thought of it as a solution to the community. So comparing that product with the idea that we have for solving student issues, community issues, becomes a challenge from my point of view. How do I convince the students that you had to put your thought process and deliver it in such a way that it is usable by the local community. So this is what I feel. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. I think good points, because yeah, how do we really convince the students, or where do we start with? Which is where when even we start interacting with the community and start building partnerships, uh, the nature of the problem, it's not about really just finding some superficial problem, just going to a community saying, hey, please tell me about your problems, which is where Lingam sir pointed out is that's not how it works. Like, we have to take some time to get to know them. And it's like you're sitting at home and someone just comes to you and say, hey, tell me about your problems, I want to try to solve it. Why would you believe anyone? So it takes time and effort to get to know them, forge partnerships, and then really understand the unmet needs of the problem. Like, what is the real need of the problem? I think once we understand that, then we'll be able to evaluate which are the problems that we can actually ask students to solve and which we cannot. Because yes, there can be a solution on Amazon, but does that solution on Amazon serve that particular context? Let's take one example, which a mentor shared with me. Uh, a lot of times when you look into tractors and farming, there are a lot of these tractors sold by John Deere and different companies. So he once met a rural innovator who developed his own tractor, a much smaller device for farms which are less than like 1 to 2 acres. And once when this mentor of mine spoke to him on why he did that, when already existing tractors are available, he mentioned that the existing tractors are from American companies or Western companies, and there people have large farmlands. Most of Indian farmers come from backgrounds where their farmlands are much smaller, and for much smaller farmlands, it's very impractical for them to buy such large machines. So he came up with a smaller solution, a much cheaper solution, which is actually meeting majority of the farmers, because it's from the Indian context, which not everyone has looked into. So just like these, it's not just about solving a problem. It's not about just giving students something and solve it. It's about solving an authentic real-time problem, which by solving can result in impact in the community.
So in the next class, I will like to share something that I have currently given my students, and maybe I'll take your input on how. I was also wanting to know how we can patent, or at least apply for IP and things like that. So maybe in the next class, definitely I will share all this.
Definitely. So I am not an IPR expert, but I have people in my institution to tell you about it. I can connect you to them. I know that if you have an innovative product, it can be patented, but the exact process, I'm not an expert, but I'm sure I can connect you to the resources who can help you with that.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions?
I would like to share the answers for these.
Yes. Dr. Mohammed.
Thank you for appreciating the initiative of multidisciplinary. Coming to the first question, how will you explain service learning to a friend? Here I will assume my friend to be my colleague, and accordingly I will explain service learning as about frugal innovation. And when they go to rural places, it will be about social entrepreneurship. And it is about empathizing, that is humanitarian engineering. So these are the three words, crucial points I will use to explain it to my friend who is also a colleague in engineering. Then two important benefits of service learning. See, in NEP, there is no demarcation between curricular, extracurricular, and co-curricular. So service learning will give an opportunity to give credits for extracurricular activities. That is what I have understood. So if I make my student to go out, and if I am also part of it and we solve that, I can easily tell the student is going to get a credit for that. So I can no need to convince the management, no need to convince the parents of the student, and also no need to convince the student. And I can tell that if you do outreach activity regarding this program, and if you solve a problem under the mentorship, you will get 2 credits. So this is one of the best benefit of service learning, what I can see here. And also they will learn by doing, especially leadership qualities, team management, and innovation. You mentioned about design thinking. So those things will come into picture on field. They will fail fast. They will learn by doing. This is the second benefit what I have observed about service learning. What one challenge I feel about service learning is, how do I measure the realized outcomes by doing service learning? And especially when I have to differentiate between one student to another student who have conducted one complete project. Suppose 8 to 10 students are deployed to solve a problem and they have done it successfully. And according to their strengths, with the SWOT analysis, they have distributed the work. But later, how do I demark, or how do I segregate them according to marks? Should I give a uniform blanket marks to each other, or should I give somebody who is involved more, or somebody who has contributed very crucial aspect of that? That is one challenge what I feel is about service learning. And remaining questions were very interesting. What Bindu madam has pointed out, what Counter has pointed out, and especially what Bharti madam has pointed out, how to convince and get the funds from management. Okay, excellent session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. I think they were very, very nice insights and questions. Just to briefly go through them, one term you used on the benefits, I'm glad you used it, empathy. Empathy for me is one of the most important skills for the future generation of engineers, because empathy is what helps you really understand another person's problem and be able to feel it and be in their shoes to work with them. So thanks for just mentioning that. In terms of the benefits, yeah, the credit bearing part, the credit, yes, can be given as a co-curricular activity, but also I want to note that credit can also be just given for a service learning course which has some field-based experiences. So a course does not particularly mean that it has to be all classes in the classroom. It can be that half of the course is in the classroom, half of that is in the field. So it can be a credit bearing experience also for an existing or a new course. With respect to the challenging elements, I think great questions. This is what we'll focus on in the last week, which is how do we assess student outcomes? Because how do we really measure these outcomes like teamwork, communication, various aspects, and also rightly point out in a group, how do I measure outcomes individually and as a group? Which is where I think assessment metrics come into play. So, for example, if I want to see what each student has contributed to, so definitely if I give students something to do in a team, it's not necessary and it's not needed that all of them work on everything equally. It can also be possible that each one of them will break down into different parts and contribute to it, and which is how even teams work in industry. Every team will have sub teams and every sub team will contribute in one way. But if you want to know what each member's contribution to the entire team is, you can include a small aspect like, one reflection assignment that is individual, not group. At each student should individually reflect on their experience and write an assignment for 500 words and submit. So then you see what role they have played on their on the solution, on their team, on the project, and what role do they think they have to play in the society. So I think in terms of assessment of individual or group, it's really on how we structure our assessments, and it's all how we format them. So there are various ways to go about it, and we can discuss about that. But particularly with respect to student learning and outcomes, we'll discuss about this in the last week.
Any more questions? Okay.
So just in terms of the last, like I mentioned, next session, we'll be focusing on initiating and fostering community partnership, which is the first step. A lot of you asked, what is the first step? How do I start? First step is identifying a community partner and initiating a communication to talk to them. So that will be what we focus on next week. But every week we'll have a few assignments, and these assignments are just to help you achieve your learning outcomes. If you go all the way to the first slide, these are the learning outcomes of the you should be able to initiate and forge partnership with communities built around mutual trust, respect, and relationships. Design new or existing service learning courses and guide students to use human-centered design approach. So I'll be giving you assignments. There's not going to be like a student-teacher relationship here. We're all peers. So these are just ways for you to be able to structure your learning in this program so that you meet your learning outcomes at the end of it. So a few questions for you all to answer by next week. How do you intend to integrate service learning in your institution? That is, you want to do it in an existing course, or you want to have it as a co-curricular activity or as a new course? And then next, what is your context? Where would you like to implement service learning? Third one is, who is your community partner? So do you want to work with a nearby region? Like at my institution, our community partners, we work with our nearby villages. So we have 5 partner villages in the nearby regions as part of the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan program, and we work with those communities. Or you can work with a particular NGO, or you can also work with an industry. It does not have to be that it has to be for a social cause. It has to be a service-based thing. You're supposed to provide service, so it can be for an industry also, but working on a service-based task. So I think these will be good questions for you all to think about until next week, because this will be the first aspect. Once you have a particular community partner in mind, next week we'll think about and we'll go through on how you initiate partnerships, how do you forge these partnerships, and how do you kind of evolve these partnerships to service learning projects. So that's it for today. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. I'll share the PDF version of this slide the moment Shivasa adds me to the group. And we'll keep in touch. And next week we'll focus on partnerships.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.
Assignment or individual assignment?
Is individual. I think this entire workshop is individual assignments, but I know a lot of people are coming from Reva University, so you can do that a group assignment also, because I think if you're working as a group, I think it is great, because it takes a lot of manpower to start off something like this initially. So if you're multiple members from a group, you all can do this as a group also.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, sir. Just I request the coordinator, madam, anything? Bharati madam? Bharati madam, anything you would like to ask? Okay. Yeah, I just request Mohammed Riaz to conclude, one of the coordinators of this program, to conclude the first day's session.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. Few highlights what we heard, listened, and trying to chew and digest today. The keywords are credit bearing, educational experience, organized service, then identified community needs. These are the keywords what we have heard today. And the
reflection, reciprocal partnerships, last two, sorry.
Okay. Reflection and reciprocal partnership. So these are the keywords what we will be hearing for the next 1 month, complete 4 weeks of FDP. And that should be in our subconscious mind when we attend the classes or the sessions further. The identified areas where we can reach are rural areas, underprivileged communities, and also disabilities are the domains where we can focus to find the solutions. And also we saw there are 2 more domains which overlap with service learning. One is design thinking, and one more is sustainable development goals. Then we were asked to explain about how we are going to explain to your friend and what are the benefits, 2 benefits and 1 challenge. And there were quite interesting questions, especially how to convince management. And Rohit sir has given solution like we have to show that it has huge impact on NIRF and RI ranking. And also we can do the activity as a university social responsibility if there is some provision and if the management is open for such issues, for such opportunities. And also there was question from Dr. Kaunte and Dr. Bindu madam, where they actually start. And if there is some idea, it will be already existing in Amazon. So how to go about that? So that will be discussed in the next session. That is what Rohit sir has convinced us. And also Lingam sir pointed out a very good question. Why should the community people trust us? So that is also will be going to be discussed in future classes. So at the end, we concluded the class with an assignment where we have 3 questions, and it focuses on fostering community partnership. The first question is, how do you intend to integrate SL, service learning, in your institution, either for the existing or you want to create a new? The second is, what is the context you want to implement service learning? And the third question is, who is your community partner? Because if we treat them as stakeholder, I am sure that we are not going to solve the problem. If we consider them as partners, then only we can serve the complete activity will serve the purpose. So this is our activity for the next session. And as Bharti Madam pointed out, if the activity or assignment can be done in group, it will be remarkable. So this is what I can take from today's class, and I would like to thank and appreciate everybody's involvement. Though everybody is quite keen, interested, but everybody might not be able to voice here, because some people might not be having access to good internet, or some people might be sitting in some zones where they have to maintain silence, like library. So I appreciate everybody's presence and I appreciate everybody's attendance. Especially Rohit, you are creating a new wave of service learning in India. We professors in India, we are very much eager to do many things, but we don't have direction. And I appreciate that you have been abroad to Purdue University and you have been part of ethics and you have understood the core of the service engineering. And I appreciate that you have moved from electronics domain to education in PhD, which is also a quite risky thing. But I appreciate, and your contribution will be taken by us, and we will create new waves and tides in service learning, in engineering education, especially in South India.
Thank you so much. And yes, I'm not creating any new waves. We are doing it together. Like I mentioned, I want this to become a community of service learning practitioners who are convinced about this pedagogy, convinced about its benefits for the institution, for the society, for faculty, and for students. So we'll definitely keep working together even beyond this FDP to be able to benefit our students, also impact the society at large. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. If you can turn on your videos, we will take a screenshot. I request all members to just turn on your videos so that we can take a screenshot and it will be as a record for us. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Rohit, for the
Thank you.
session.
Have a good
We'll
weekend,
start the
everyone.
session.
Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.